actually move from, okay, now we're going to talk about God, okay? So here's the thing, and I know sometimes, some people get upset, and that's okay. But I want to tell you, somewhere within us, we all have this sense of God. However you define God, however you understand God, this is a very personal matter. And as adults, you're up to this. You're up to, having that relationship in a way that is right for you. So, but in this time, in our new age, our great opportunity is to not only know about God, okay? We all, it's in the culture, it's in the ethers, we know about God. It's great, okay? But now what we're invited to do is to know God, okay? I have to tell you, you understand this. See, I have a teenage son, right? His name is Michael. I could tell you, I know a lot about Michael, and I could tell you a lot about Michael. But that's different than if you know Michael. And it's the same thing, you see, it's the same thing with the God issue. So the great opportunity of our time is to move from knowing about God to knowing God in a really personal way. Okay? There are two more things about this new age that I find very, very exciting, and maybe you will too, right? This one idea is that one of the features of New Age spirituality is that it takes us into life, okay? That's what New Age spirituality does, as opposed to old spirituality. Okay, it took us into, where did it take us? Into monasteries. It took us, which were wonderful, right? Nothing wrong with that. But again, it's the New Age. So what we're looking at now is that the spirituality of our time, to be appropriate, to be real, must enable us to move out into the world, you see, dramatically different, okay? So this is huge and very, very exciting, but it raises the question, I'm just an ordinary person. I'm really not that holy, okay? And, I have to tell you, I really struggled with this because I thought, I'm just like, I'm a regular person like yourself. And I always thought that being holy meant, praying all day, or I wasn't quite sure what it meant, but I knew I could never be it. Okay, but here's the thing. The new idea of us as holy people is the idea that you and I, as regular, secular, everyday folks, can move into the world in love, in kindness, in respect. The great opportunity of the new age is that we be the holy people that we are in the everyday world. When we go to the mall, when we're driving the carpool, we're out with our spouses. Do you see? These are the most exciting and wonderful times. So how are we going to do this? This is my question. I get very excited about these things, and I'm like, oh, great, now what, right? Because I don't know how I'm going to get there. But I want to tell you, this is where I'm going to tell you now about the 10 things to know about the Akashic Records, okay? And so, of course, yes, I do love David Letterman and his top 10 list. This is a little longer than David's list, but here's the thing. The 10 things to know about the Akashic Records. So listen, we're going to start really here at the beginning. And the beginning, right? What is the beginning? What is the Akashic Record? Of course, of course. So let me tell you what it is. The short answer to this is that the Akashic Record is an infinite spiritual resource for personal empowerment and consciousness development. Okay? That's what it is. It's very simple. Yes? And now I'm going to give you the long answer. Just a little more complicated, but we're going to take it apart, in the different pieces so that we can be clear about all the elements of what we're talking about. Okay? So here's what the Akashic Record is. It is a soul-level dimension of consciousness that contains a vibrational archive of every soul in its journey. Okay? It's a soul level dimension of consciousness that contains a vibrational archive of every soul in its journey. Now listen, don't be intimidated by this. First, we're going to talk about soul. The soul is the part of who we are that is aware of its own divine nature, okay? The soul is the part of me that knows it is divine in nature. It is the part of you that knows it's divine, okay? That's what the soul is. It's that part, okay? So we've got that. So that's what the soul is. And you know what that is. That's that part of you that sometimes you're very aware of and sometimes you're not at all. But it's that part of you that is like that infinite reservoir of love and understanding and wisdom and a sense of connectedness with the greater realities, right? That's your soul. This dimension of consciousness. All right, now listen, this is really much more simple than it sounds because there are many dimensions of consciousness. Do you know your dream state is a dimension of consciousness? Okay, it's really that simple. I know it's a fancy word, but it's quite simple. There are dimensions of consciousness. Your memory, okay, that whole all your old memories and thoughts about yourself and other times in your life, that is a dimension of your consciousness. So the Akashic Record is a soul level dimension of consciousness. And when we put those two together, you see, you understand what that is. Now, everybody's in the record, okay? This is a good thing. We're all in it together. And there are two parts to each set of records. The first part is fixed, okay? And what I mean by that, it's like the blueprint of your soul. I like to think of it really like the thumbprint, right? The imprint of your soul. It's the essential pattern of who you are in your soul. This is fixed. This is stable. It's who you are now. It's who you've always been, and it's who you will always be. Okay, it's the underpinning. That is staying the same. Okay? The exciting part for us is the evolving part, okay, the changeable part. And that is traveling with this blueprint, okay? So you've got the print, and traveling along with that are the catalog. It's a catalog of the lifetimes you live as you become aware of the blueprint of your soul, okay? So we're really looking at, this is like the chronicles of you, okay, through space and time as a person. Okay, now there may certainly be life on other planets and lots of all kinds of things going on. That may be the case, but we don't deal with that in this. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about you as a human being, you as a soul, yes, as living human lifetimes, all right? And so we're looking at your story, the story of who you are. All right. And so one of the things that's really fascinating and very helpful in this work is to think about your story in this life. Because see, the record is the story of who you are through all these lifetimes, right? And this lifetime, from a record's point of view, is like a sliver of that, you see. And it's very helpful to become aware of your story in this life. So I really want to invite you to consider, really in this lifetime you do have a story. We all have a story, of course. We're people. We love stories, come on. And your story has two levels. There's the ordinary story. I mean, I've got my story, right? Yeah, I grew up in Chicago. I come from a big family. I went to college. I mean, life goes, right? There's the story. I moved here, we did this, great things happen, right? Wonderful. That's the ordinary story. I've got one and you've got one. But underneath, there's the story of the spiritual story of you. And I know, like in my story, there were questions really about how do I know God as opposed to know about God, see? And what about, I always thought that if I knew everything, if I had enough knowledge about myself, that then everything would be just swell. But I mean, it was helpful, don't get me wrong, knowledge is great stuff, but I was very confused about the limits of self-knowledge. I thought self-knowledge was the key to everything. And you know, it's terrific stuff, but it doesn't always go far enough. So I know for myself that one of the big questions in my life, one of the spiritual themes, is this issue of knowledge and power, you see. But see, those are a couple of my themes. And I really ask you to think about what are the questions that have been driving you in this lifetime. Because certainly there are some. You know, we all have them. All right? Now, the second item on our list, we're only on number 2, is that funny? Okay, but listen, let me tell you. Akasha, what is Akasha? Isn't that a great word? It's a Sanskrit word. You know, I'm from the Midwest. We never heard this word Akasha. Okay, but Akasha, it's a Sanskrit word, and what it means, here's what it means. It means primary substance, that from which all things are formed. That definition is from the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ. It's in the introduction. Yes. And so if you want, I mean, you can, that's where you'll find it. All right. But what this is for our understanding is that Akasha is the raw life force before we get to it, like with our thoughts and our feelings. You know, it's really the stuff of life. That's what Akasha is. And that's what, when we work in the records, that's what we're dealing with. All right? And now we're going to move on to 3. Now, you might be getting the idea by now that reincarnation might be figuring in here somewhere. Okay? Now, is that true? Yes, it is true. So I'm going to tell you, though, reincarnation from the perspective of the records. Okay, it's not about, oh, you were bad, you got to come back and be good, we're going to like even the score, balance the ledger. We're not doing that here. From an Akashic Records point of view, reincarnation is about our journey, okay, the journey of the soul from lifetime to lifetime as we become aware of our own goodness and the goodness of all others. You know, this takes a long time. You know, it takes a long time for us to come to know our own goodness, to know really the perfection of our own soul. And then it takes a really long time to see this about everybody else. It really does. I mean, this is why we have eternity. You know, it's a good thing. We like this. This is good. It makes it easy. So just so you know that reincarnation, from a records point of view, yes, is that we have all these opportunities in a variety of human experiences through which we come to know that no matter what we do, no matter what we fail to do, that we are good. We are essentially good. And there is nothing we can do to separate ourselves from the love of God. Nothing. And when we know this about ourselves, we begin to see that it is absolutely true of everyone else as well. Which brings us to the issue of karma. Okay, we've all heard of karma, cause and effect. This is item number 4 on our list. From an Akashic Records perspective, the idea of karma is that we come into a lifetime, any lifetime and all lifetimes, to experience the consequences of our consciousness. Again, I know that's a mouthful, but let me tell you what that really means. We come into a lifetime and we get to see how we interact. We get to see what we believe. We get to really come face to face with what we think is true, what we assume is true, what we know is true. And we get to reevaluate. Karma is we live a life that is a physical expression of our ideas and our understandings and our beliefs. And when we recognize that, we are restored basically to choices. We get to say, oh, that's true, or I used to think that was true, it's not true. Do you see? So karma is about engaging with the physical reality of what we have always believed or known to be true. And then it's like waking up to that. Okay, so karma is not a bad thing. It's actually fabulous. Okay? And one of the ways, one of the things really that makes it easier for us to take a look at these things, to examine and explore these different options, reincarnation and karma, is this Akashic Atmosphere. Okay, number 5 on our list, the Akashic Atmosphere. What the heck is that, right? There really is an atmosphere. It's like the climate. It's the energy of the Akashic Record. It is governed by 3 absolutes. All right, and here's what they are. The first is fear not. Okay, fear not. The second is judge not. Okay, and the third is resist not. When these 3 get together, they come together and they establish an environment that is it's like honorable. Do you know? It's like honorable and respectful and kind and supportive and safe. It's like a sanctuary. Do you know, I'm sure you've been to places like that. I know I have, where I walk in and it's like, oh. It's like being on the island, right? Safe on the island. And from those places, it is easier, much easier, much, much easier to take a look at what's going on within ourselves. It's easier to examine, who am I and what the heck am I doing? And why do I keep making the same mistakes over and over and over? What the heck is that? But see, in this environment, it's really fine to look. Okay, because there's no ridicule. There's no torment. There's none of that. It's really fabulous. But I do have to be real with you on this, because I know in my own experience, I've been doing this since 94. Yes, I've been teaching since 96. And, these don't start out as absolutes. I actually think, I wonder if it should be fear less, judge less, resist less, because it's a process, right? So the fact is, as human beings, we're always going to have these things, okay? It's all right. It's not personal. But little by little, right, in this environment, we move away from. Remember, we are moving away from the limitations of the past, our old ideas and convictions, and we are moving toward new possibilities and probabilities. And so we are fearing less than we used to. We are judging less than we are used to. And, of course, we are resisting less because, if we're not afraid and we're not judging, why resist?